Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our December 2024 Theater Management and Producing online Q&A or webinar or info session. My name's Stephen Chailkelson, and I'm the head of the Theater Management and Producing program at Columbia. And I am here with...
I'm Victoria Bailey, otherwise known as Tori Bailey. I'm an assistant professor of practice in the theater management and producing program, and I also work with Stephen advising students in the program. It's lovely to have you here. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Niquette Johnson, and I work in the Admissions and Financial Aid Office.
And we're going to spend the next hour or so talking through some of the basics of the Theater Management and Producing MFA program. And then hopefully we'll have some time for a few questions as well. So we'll get things started. And I guess I should also say welcome to anybody who is watching this over the course of the year.
Right.
We're glad to have you watching this video. And hope to have a chance to meet you in person at some point. So to get things started, just to recap who we are, my name is Stephen Chailkelson. I'm a professor of practice here in the Columbia University School of the Arts, and I'm the director of the Theater Management and Producing concentration.
And I'm Tori Bailey. I'm in the Theater Management and Producing program, a faculty member and concentration advisor.
And the third member of our leadership team is Christina Selby, who is currently on parental leave, just had a baby a few weeks ago. And she works with me and Tori as internship coordinator and advisor in her spare time. The rest of the time, she is vice president of production and touring at the Niederlander organization. And so to kick things off, I think what we'd like to do is just orient you a little bit to the Columbia University School of the Arts and where that is within this big thing called Columbia University. Columbia has many, many different schools and departments. There's the law school, the business school, the journalism school, the medical school, and so on.
And the college.
And Columbia College, and Columbia Engineering for undergrads, and general studies, and more. School of the Arts is one of those schools within Columbia. And within the School of the Arts, we have 4 separate programs: film, theater, writing, and visual arts. And what you're looking at on the screen there is our home base, which is Dodge Hall, located at 116th Street and Broadway. And that's where each of those programs has their main office. But we are also, as you'll see, scattered around various buildings within Morningside Heights, up in Manhattanville in New York City. And our program in particular, the Management and Producing program, really uses all of New York City to its best advantage. So zooming in from the School of the Arts to the theater program, also known as the Oscar Hammerstein II Center for Theater Studies, we have 6 concentrations within the theater program: acting, directing, dramaturgy, playwriting, stage management, and theater management and producing. And then we also offer a dual degree program, JD with Columbia Law School and MFA in theater management and producing here in the School of the Arts. And we'll talk more about that a little later in this session. And the first thing we should probably talk about is perhaps the elephant in the room, which is why an MFA, and do you even need an MFA? And the answer is really no, you don't need an MFA. If you want to work in the theater, you don't necessarily need an MFA. You can work your way up. You can start in an office or in a theater, and you can slowly but surely work your way up and learn the business. An MFA, going back to school for a graduate degree, isn't for everyone, but we think it's very useful for the right person at the right time in their career.
At the right time, right.
Because when you're working your way up in an office, you don't necessarily get a sense of the big picture. You're often so consumed with the day-to-day work that you're doing, and everybody around you is so consumed that there isn't a lot of time to get a sense of the big picture. You don't really have an opportunity to see how other people would handle a particular situation or a particular task. And so you don't have the opportunity for perspective, and often there isn't much opportunity for teaching and learning in a really busy work environment.
When you're in an office, it's all about getting the work done, and there really isn't. It's the rare moment when there's time to ask a question of the person you're reporting to, or someone who's doing something you're interested in. You just don't get those opportunities very often.
And so when I think about an MFA, and speaking from both personal experience and from the experience of someone who is trying to deliver some value to the people who come to Columbia, I think there are three major reasons why you might want to consider a graduate degree, and ways that you should be evaluating the programs that you're looking at. And that is what they're able to deliver in terms of curriculum, collaboration, and contacts. For us on the curriculum side, and we'll get into much more detail shortly, but on the one hand, it's the big picture. On the other hand, it's really in-depth study and the opportunity to expand your toolkit beyond what you would otherwise have at your disposal if you were just in a work environment. It's the opportunity to meet with colleagues, work with them, collaborate with them, and build relationships that can go way beyond your time in school. And it's being taught by and having an opportunity to meet with and interact with working professionals who become part of your network and hopefully inspire you in some way in terms of what you want to do with your career. And then if we go from the question of why an MFA, if you get that far, if you get past it, then I guess the question is why Columbia? And we think we have a lot to offer that is different from what other programs offer. For starters, our program is highly individualized. On the one hand, there are a lot of requirements, and we expect everybody to fulfill the requirements. But in and around those requirements, whether it's elective classes, the types of internships you choose to do, how you balance your time between producing projects on campus and working off campus, all the topic that you choose for your thesis, all those different factors combine, and we, in working with you as your advisors, we help to combine them to create a program that is as individualized as possible for each student. Our program was really born out of the idea of work and study. The fact that being in the professional world can complement what you're learning in the classroom and vice versa. So we are not a program that says, stay here, stay on campus, don't venture out for 2 years or 3 years, and then you can go out into the real world. You really are engaged in the professional world from your first day, actually from the first moment of orientation in the program.
Nor are we a program where you're in school for 3 out of 4 terms, and the 4th term you're away on an internship or a professional residency. They really are integrated. You're in school and you're doing internships, so you're constantly getting to juxtapose what you're learning in class with what you see and observe in the workplace.
So it really is about balance for us. It's the balance of the required courses or the required parts of the program and the elective parts of the program, the academic studies and the professional engagement. Looking at the curriculum itself, the balance between commercial and not-for-profit, which is equally weighted in our program.
Which is
A
very
balance,
unusual. I
yeah.
think possibly we're the only program that really gives equal weight to commercial and nonprofit and actually expects you to, we expect our students to be interested in one, the other, or both, and possibly to change their mind several times in the course of the 2 years they're in school. And we actually think that the two worlds overlap a great deal, and so it's really important to understand both.
It really is an ecosystem. And so many of our graduates also move between commercial and not-for-profit or back and forth. Or our commercial producers who are developing work with not-for-profits or not-for-profits that are working with commercial producers. We also try to balance concepts of management and administration with producing and entrepreneurship. At its heart, whether you are starting a not-for-profit theater company or a commercial production, in the theater, you are most likely an entrepreneur and you need to have that mindset. Balancing the building of very specific skills with an analysis of industry issues and trying to figure out how the industry can be improved looking into the future. To do that, we can't just tear it down. We need to understand the past and study it. We need to understand the present and how the industry currently works. And then, armed with that knowledge, we can look at the future of the industry and how we can make it better. We also, much more so in recent years, have been expanding our international reach. So that we're looking at issues and production, both in terms of the United States, as well as other countries, especially the UK. So zooming in even more now into the program itself, we admit 8 to 10 students per year for a 3-year program, which is 2 years or 4 semesters of classes and 1 thesis year. The 2 years of classes, we're essentially talking about fall and spring semesters that are approximately 14 to 15 weeks each. And during the semester, when we say full time for those 4 semesters, we mean approximately 15 to 20 hours of time spent in the classroom.
Each week.
Each week. During the thesis year, most students are actually working full time while they're researching and writing their thesis. In addition to the actual classroom or course requirements, which is a total of 60 credits taken over the first 2 years, we have a number of producing and management requirements, which includes what is for most students serving as company manager of a 3rd-year MFA thesis production, as well as producing 2 or more student productions on campus in one of our campus theaters.
Right, those will range from a thesis project, a 3rd-year directing or acting thesis project, a new play festival, smaller 2nd-year productions or smaller budget 2nd-year productions in Shapiro Theater, but there's a wide range of opportunities for producing, and most students do far more than what's required.
And because they do more than what's required because it's a great opportunity to practice.
Right.
Great opportunity
and
to practice
build relationships with your colleagues in the other disciplines. And those are relationships that they extend well beyond school. People develop relationships with managers and producers, develop relationships with playwrights and directors that extend into their professional life.
And when we reference this producing management requirement, that also includes our new collaboration curriculum, which puts students from all 6 concentrations together. And we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. Then there are 3 internships required, and we put internships in quotation marks because what we really mean are 3 professional experiences. And they could be internships, they could be fellowships, they could be apprenticeships, they could be part-time jobs, they could be full-time jobs. So we're pretty expansive as far as what the word internship means, with the goal being that it's a professional experience that complements what you're doing in the classroom.
And it allows you an opportunity to explore roles in the industry that you may or may not actually be sure you want to do when you finish. So it's you have we often say do one internship that's in an area that you're pretty sure is where you want to end up. Do one internship in an area that you really want to learn something about because you're not sure, but it's interesting. And do one internship in an area you're pretty sure you don't want to end up, but it's something you want to know more about. It's something you want to understand, or you just want to make sure that it's not something you want to explore.
And while all the students do at least 3 internships, most students do more than 3, because it's actually an opportunity while you're in school to test things out. If you were in the working world, not in a school program, the idea of spending 3 months in one job and 3 months in another job would likely be frowned upon.
Yeah, you never get to do this again.
But in this case, you get to try things out as much as you possibly can over your time in the program. And your excuse can always be, well, Stephen and Tori won't let me do anymore. And that gives you an opportunity to really get your foot in the door in a lot of different offices and try out a lot of different experiences. While Tori and I are the primary advisors for all students, as I mentioned, Christina Selby is our internship coordinator, and she winds up meeting with all students for advising on internships as well as jobs in the 3rd year and beyond.
So you really have someone who's responsive, whose role in the program is dedicated to helping make sure that folks have internships that are what they want at the right time and that doors are open for them.
We put free tickets on this program summary because, well, for starters, we get offered a lot of free tickets and our students take advantage of that. But also we think it's a crucial part of the program. We want you to see as much theater as you possibly can, every level, in New York, in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, anywhere in the area, Broadway, off-Broadway, off-Broadway, readings, workshops. See as much as you possibly can.
Well, this 3 years is when you develop a sense of what kind of work you want to produce, what speaks to you the most, and to develop a point of view about the challenges of managing a variety of work. So it's really important that you get out there and see as much as you can.
And then finally, there's the thesis requirement, which can take anywhere from about 6 months to a year to complete generally. And we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. This is our current roster of adjunct faculty members, all of whom are working professionals. It really is a core aspect of our program that everyone who teaches in the program, including me and Tori, are also working professionals and have our professional lives outside. And we're able to bring to the classroom our professional experiences. And we can take what we learn from the students and bring that to our professional work. We looked at the faculty. So in terms of the students, we greatly appreciate, we prize the diversity of the students in the program. I think in general at Columbia, but in particular in the theater management and producing program. Columbia has one of the largest international student populations in the United States in terms of at least geographic diversity. in the School of the Arts, 35% of the student body is international. And a snapshot of this particular moment in time, 25%, 1/4 of all the theater management and producing students are international. But when we put together a class, we're looking for diversity in every sense of the word. Different educational experiences, different work experiences, different backgrounds, every kind of demographic diversity that you can think of, because we think that that enriches the experience for everyone.
No one person in the class is like any other person in the class. We cast 8 to 10 people who are very, very different. And what's kind of magical is to see how that group forms a cohort and comes together. But people's varied experience really reinforces the learning.
I mentioned earlier on about how we're kind of spread out around Upper Manhattan, and these circles give you a sense of where we are in terms of Morningside Heights. Dodge Hall is sort of toward the, well, I guess I can probably point, right?
Yes.
You can probably see that. So here's Dodge Hall, which is classroom space. Although we have Miller Theater here in Dodge Hall, Miller Theater is primarily a music presenting venue. We have the Shapiro Theater and Shapiro Studio down here on the lower left, which is a black box theater and black box studio space where a lot of the first and second year performances take place. On this side of campus is Columbia Law School, where the first year producing students have a class with me in the spring semester. Teachers College is where the arts administration program is and where there's an opportunity to take elective courses. And then we also have classroom space in Riverside Church. Moving on to the Manhattanville campus, which is our newer campus, which is slowly getting filled up.
It's about 10 blocks further up.
Yeah, we're based essentially 115th, 116th, and here we are at 125th Street, which quickly becomes 129th Street. Don't ask me how.
Yeah, for reasons that make no sense.
But that is the Lenfest Center for the Arts, which is a new arts building, relatively new arts building for presenting theater and film. It has a visual arts gallery, as well as a separate gathering space. And up here is Nash, which has classrooms as well as studio spaces for acting and directing. Nash also houses our production resources department, which is where we have our costume shop and our prop shop. And so this is another look at Manhattanville and the Lenfest Center for the Arts. It's a flexible black box theater, which is on an upper floor of the Lenfest Center. And that's where we have our third year director's thesis productions and our third year playwrights new play festival each year. But really, as I mentioned before, New York City is your classroom. And roughly half of the classes that you take as a theater management and producing student are on campus, and the other half are located all across the city, in theaters, in producers' offices, in general managers' offices, at ad agencies, in accounting offices, primarily in Midtown, but also downtown as well.
Because those adjunct professors that you saw on an earlier slide, almost all of them are teaching in their offices. And then other classes which may be based on the Columbia campus, you'll have field trips and expeditions to various theaters around not only Manhattan, but in particular Brooklyn.
Yeah. And New Jersey, St. Anne's Warehouse, Brooklyn Academy of Music in Brooklyn, lots of opportunities for getting around the area. New York City is our laboratory. In terms of areas of study, we break them into about 10 or so different categories: accounting and finance, budgeting, contracts, creative development, EDIA, fundraising and development, history and theory, international production, human resources and labor relations, management and administration, and marketing and audience development. And what I'll just add to that, something the slide doesn't really tell you, which is that when we look at the individual courses, it isn't as though a course hits one area of study. There are courses that actually overlap multiple areas of study.
And the classes reinforce each other. You'll learn one thing and you'll talk about something in one class, and then you'll talk about it with a different lens in another class, right? So you're constantly having the opportunity to explore different areas of the business.
I love when students are talking in my class and quote another faculty member.
Or
Okay.
disagree. And I love it
Or-
when I say something and my students, someone will raise their hand and go, well, that's not what Chris Bono says. And I go, yep, nope, we have a difference of opinion there. You'll have to decide what works for you, or both things can be true.
Which is the whole point of this type of an education. This is a list of the theater management and producing courses, the current courses split over the first year and the second year. The first year, the courses are pretty much all required. And then in the second year, we loosen things up a bit, and there's more of an opportunity to pick and choose among electives. And that's where there's also more flexibility to take electives outside of the theater management and producing program. In the first year, we do leave room for one course each semester outside of theater management and producing, but in the second year, there's a lot more flexibility.
And the reason it's a little confusing, the reason there are so many courses in the first year is some of those courses are half-term courses. So it's not that we didn't know how to count when we told you how many courses or hours you do in a term. But some of these are, they're two halves that then make a whole.
Exactly. For example, marketing tools and audience development is a half semester course, which alternates with advertising.
Advertising for the theater.
Yeah. And we have, so every year we take a real close look at our curriculum and we figure out what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be added, perhaps what needs to be cut. And that's how we develop the curriculum year after year after year. We have several new courses that started both last year and this year. There are two collaboration courses, which again, we'll say a little bit more about shortly. And then a new half semester course in public sector policy, and Tori's new course, Unpacking the US Resident Theater.
Which is a course that actually is open to directors, dramaturgs, stage managers, actors, and for anyone in the management and producing program who thinks they need to learn more about how the resident not-for-profit theater across the country works.
And one thing that we've started to do more of as well is collaborative teaching or team teaching. There are several courses or portions of individual courses that are taught by 2 or more faculty members.
Yes, I also teach Reimagining the American Theater, which I co-teach with Christian Parker, who runs the dramaturgy concentration. So that's an example of a course where both of us are in the classroom every week. Sue Frost and Chris Burney, both of them are in the classroom every week for their course, which is the
role of the producer.
The role of the producer.
Yeah. Justin Carr and Nick Falzone teach ticketing. Yeah. So on the one hand, what we really like is getting different perspectives in different classes. And then on the other hand, we really love when you can be in one class with 2 faculty members and in the moment get 2 completely different perspectives. So in terms of electives, ultimately, you're at Columbia University, and if you wanted to take a language course, or as another student did a few years ago, take a course in urban planning or in some other area of the university, there are a lot of opportunities available for you. But some of the electives that we see our students doing most commonly are courses within the theater program, but outside of theater management and producing, especially in courses that are offered through the dramaturgy program and through the stage management concentration. There are producing classes, both film and television producing classes in the film program. There's the Arts Administration program at Teachers College, though at the moment they're going through, or they've just finished going through a bit of a restructuring of their program. There are electives that are available for cross-registration every semester at Columbia Business School. In addition to the one required course at Columbia Law School, we sometimes have students audit other courses there. And then, as I mentioned, there are other areas of the university as well. So I kept saying, we'll talk more about collaboration. We'll talk more about collaboration. So now let's talk about collaboration. Something that, again, sets the Columbia program apart from most of the others is that all students from all the different concentrations are really together under one umbrella in the theater program. And there are both required and optional opportunities to work together. Our newest required collaboration is the first year collaboration intensive and the second year collaboration studio. The collaboration intensive takes place the first week of the spring semester of the first year. We basically cancel almost all classes that week. Students are placed into groups and they create a new work within a week, a short work, and then present at the end of the week with some guidance along the way by faculty members from the different concentrations. In the second year with Collaboration Studio, we take those relationships and take them to the next level, and students from each concentration work together to develop and produce a new play written by one of the second year playwriting students. So in addition to those sort of formal required collaboration opportunities, there are classroom projects where you may be working with other members of your cohort or with students from other concentrations. And there are all the various producing opportunities we talked about earlier, first and second year productions, the third year directing main stage productions, and the new play festival. A really interesting opportunity for collaboration outside of the theater program and with other students from across the School of the Arts is our digital storytelling lab. And we've had a number of students participate in that course and projects that have come out of that course. And then finally, we have students who are involved in either extracurricular productions that they develop with their fellow students, either on campus or off campus.
Yeah, and in particular, that's something that happens a lot over the summer because playwrights or directors with whom you might have worked in your first year or second year, they are doing productions off Broadway around the city, and they say, I have a producer I want to work with. And so that I would say that in a class, in any given year, at least I don't know if you would agree, Stephen, but I think it's usually about half of the students in a given year, TMP students, may well be working on projects off campus, often with Columbia folks, but more projects than what's happening just on campus.
Absolutely. And that's, again, a part of how the program is individualized and how each student strikes a balance among all the various opportunities that are provided. Because one student might say, as just happened this past summer, some students said, I'm going to be in my internship. I'm going to do that all summer long. That's what I'm going to do full time.
Right.
Other students doing an internship that not quite full time and something else part time. Another student not actually taking on an internship, but working on multiple projects. And because he wanted more opportunity to just practice producing.
Right.
And was also being recruited, I think, by a lot of the artists in the program to produce their work.
Most management and producing students by the end of the first term start getting requests from producers and from playwrights and directors to say, will you work on a project with me?
One of the highlights of our program, it's hard to believe that it started only, it's only been about 5 years, but back in 2019, right before the whole COVID thing, was our first year of our Columbia University Stage 1 exchange program. And for those of you who don't know, Stage 1 is an offshoot of the Society of London Theatre, which provides educational opportunities and funding and mentorship for up-and-coming producers in the UK. And we've developed a relationship with them where for 1 week in the fall, a number of the Stage 1 UK-based producers come to New York City. They hang out with the producing students, with the MFA producing students. And we provide a whole set of workshops and class sessions to teach them about how the business in America is different from the UK. And then in the spring semester, this year it's going to be the second week in May, all the second year producing students go to London. And we spend a week there hosted by Stage 1, part of our time in the Society of London Theatre offices, part of the time out seeing shows, touring theaters, making site visits, learning about how theater is made in the UK and all the differences. So part of it is a real deep, immersive educational experience. And the other part of it is an opportunity to build a huge number of relationships with professionals and up-and-coming producers in the UK. And this picture with the hard hats, which happened earlier this year, right? The spring 24 trip is probably my favorite picture in this entire deck.
We were in and out of 3 venues at the National Theatre in London, and because they were in tech, we had to wear hard hats.
So speaking of internships, I am not going to read this slide, but this is just a taste in alphabetical order of some of the many theaters, offices, companies where our students have interned over the past few years. And the picture that's up there on this slide is from, I think it's about 3 or 4 years ago at 101 Productions, which is a Broadway general management office, where it just so happened we had 1 student working full-time and 4 other students interning all at the same time.
But these are names, the bulk of these offices are in New York, but students intern all over the country and in fact, all over the world. Often if a student is not in New York in the summer, if they've gone home, perhaps they're from overseas, they've gone home, or they get an internship in another location in the States. There are a whole host of things you can do as an internship. Last summer, we had 1 student interning in Shanghai. We had another student interning in Kansas City. We had another student in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. So there really are, the opportunities are very, very wide.
And obviously that's for summertime or 3rd year where you can travel outside of New York City.
Yeah.
During the first 2 years, you have to be in the city.
You have to stay on campus. You have to stay in New York.
And the whole question of when you start doing internships is just another one of those things that's individualized, because some people are coming back to school for the first time in a while and they just want to be in school for a year and they don't want to do any internships. And other students come in and want to hit the ground running and want to start interning their very first week in the program. And both of those things are okay.
And Christina really works with everyone to figure out what's best.
Yeah. So in terms of the thesis, as we mentioned, the thesis is written in the third year. We don't just throw you into the third year. Actually, in the spring semester of the second year, you have a class with me, which is about half thesis prep. And that we go through a process of brainstorming thesis ideas, developing an argument, doing preliminary research, pitching, and so that by the time you're done with classes in the second year, most people are pretty much set with their thesis topic and are launched into the summer and into the third year to do their research and writing. The thesis is a position, and I should have mentioned this probably up front, but the thesis is a position paper. It's not a project. It's not producing a show. It is an academic, a formal academic paper that makes an argument for what might be change in the theater industry or debunking some conventional wisdom. Most of them are theater oriented, but we've had students go into other areas of arts and entertainment as well. And it really is your best opportunity while in graduate school to immerse yourself and go deep into a particular topic area. For many students, this is the area on which they're writing their thesis is also the area where they think they want to work. And so the thesis can also be an opportunity to meet people in a particular sector of the industry, to interview them, get a foot in the door, have an excuse to get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had, over the past few years, we've had several students who have gotten full-time jobs coming right out of their thesis interview process. So it's third year, approximately 50 to 100 pages. You're making an argument. Most are very, very highly interview based, and you work with both faculty advisors as well as outside advisors.
And you have a lot of structure built in help along the way. You really do spend the second term, second year. You really begin to have the opportunity to fine-tune topics. And we also encourage you to live with those topics. Sometimes someone starts a topic second term, second year, and over the course of the summer, they realize, you know, I don't really want to go down that path, but this exploration has taken me down another path that's really interesting to me. And we're fine with that.
Yeah. And there are some people who work faster, some people who don't start working right away, so they're devoting more time from day to day to their thesis. So there is an opportunity to graduate a little bit early, either in October of the third year, if you've really, really made fast progress, or more likely February of the third year. But the vast majority of students graduate in May of the third year.
Yeah.
So a little bit more about the dual degree JD and MFA in theater management and producing. So this dual degree program is only available for students who pursue the MFA in theater management and producing. You can't do a JD and an MFA in directing, for example. And the real benefit is that you're able to do what is essentially a full law degree and a full MFA in 4 to 5 years. And if you can get it done in 4 years, you're essentially saving what would otherwise be, well, in doing it in 4 years, instead of 6 years, you're essentially saving 2 years of time and money. But it is a pretty intense 4-year period. Out of those 4 years or 8 semesters, 5 of them are spent at Columbia Law School. 3 of them are spent in the School of the Arts. And although that sounds very compartmentalized, for the most part, the way it works is the first year in the law school is mostly all law school. The first year in the MFA program is mostly all MFA program. But the other 2 years, you're kind of based in one school, taking more of your courses in that one school, but also taking courses in the other school. So it really is much more porous for the third and fourth years of the program. You can start the JD MFA either in Columbia Law School or School of the Arts. And essentially the way it works is you apply separately to both schools. You do the complete law school application, the complete School of the Arts application. And if you are admitted to both schools, you can then raise your hand and say, I would like to do the program, or I'd like to do it as a dual degree program. There is also the possibility that when you are in the first year at Columbia Law School or the first year in the School of the Arts, that you can apply to the other school. So you don't necessarily have to get into both up front. You can get into one, start in one program, and you can still do the dual degree program if you are accepted to the other school during the first year in the program. But obviously, once you've enrolled at Columbia, there's no guarantee that you're going to get into the other school's program. So that's just something to take into consideration, I guess. The majority of students who have completed the JD MFA write their thesis while they're in their fourth year. So while they're in classes, they're also writing the thesis. And that's what enables them to graduate in 4 years. We've had some students who have done 4 years worth of classes and then take an extra year and write the thesis in the 5th year. So that is an option as well. We've talked about stage 1 already, but just a quick word about some of our other industry partnerships. We have our Prince Fellowship and our Front Row Productions Fellowship. I'll talk more about the Prince Fellowship in a moment. Our Front Row Productions Fellowship is currently on hold, but essentially we admit producing fellows into these programs and they take courses alongside the producing students. So more about that in a moment. We've also, over the past few years, had partnerships with both Broadway Advocacy Coalition in conjunction with Columbia Law School, so sort of a 3-way partnership there, as well as with Black Theater Coalition on a series of seminar sessions that we developed.
And we talked about stage 1.
Yes.
All right.
So as far as the Prince Fellowship, for those of you who don't know, the Prince Fellowship is named for producer-director Harold Prince. It actually started as the T Fellowship, named after producer T. Edward Hambleton. And it was founded by T. Edward Hambleton and Hal Prince, and Tori Bailey and Stephen Chailkelson. So through that program, which is now named after Hal, we bring in usually 1 or 2 producing fellows each year. And those producing fellows have an opportunity to take theater management and producing courses. And they're also mentored in the development of a fellowship project. And over the years, we've had a lot of different and exciting fellowship projects. Last season was a big season for us because 2 of our fellows, Ben Holzman and Rachel Sussman, who's now also an adjunct faculty member, both had fellowship projects open on Broadway, How to Dance in Ohio and SUFS. The mentors for the Prince Fellowship, oh, sorry, Tori.
I was gonna say, it's very much a program for folks who have a particular project in mind that they are ready to develop and want to work on. So it is a different experience than being in school. And so the point is that you get to interact with probably the most extended interaction with the Prince Fellows, sometimes in class, and then they come on the trip to London.
Yeah, it is very much a project-oriented program. It's 1 year that they're with us, very much focused on their project, but as part of it, as part of their development as up and coming producers, they have the opportunity to take classes as well. So you're normally in classes with multiple Prince Fellows during your time in the program.
And they have their 6 mentors for that program?
Oh, yeah, the 6 mentors. So Kristen Caskey, Sue Frost, Tom Schumacher, Jeffrey Seller, David Stone, and Orrin Wolf. And they are represented by the playbills on the slide, though those are not the only shows that those producers have produced.
And Orrin was, in fact, in the first year of the Prince Fellows.
Yes, he was our very first Prince Fellow. So financial aid, we always get lots of questions about financial aid. The way that works is when you apply to the program, you submit your application, and then completely separately, if you want to be considered for either a need-based or a merit-based fellowship, you separately submit the financial documentation that's necessary for the financial aid application. Our admissions committee doesn't see anything related to finances. What we do is we make our admissions decisions, and then once admitted, you're sent an offer, or a prospective student is sent an offer with a dollar amount of financial aid for years 1 and 2. Or essentially, we offer you a certain dollar amount of scholarship money for year 1, knowing that that's going to be renewable for the 2nd year, provided you make good academic progress. Those fellowships range from about $10,000 to $50,000 per year. We also have, thanks to the generosity of one of our alumni, producer Barbara Whitman, we have a fellowship that actually covers full tuition for both the 1st and 2nd year. And we are very, very busy raising money for additional fellowship dollars. Beyond the scholarship funds, there are additional opportunities for students to work in student service positions, and those are pretty well-paid jobs on campus that are connected to the School of the Arts and the theater program. So for producing students, for example, there are opportunities that really do relate to management and producing, and not only can you get paid a pretty great hourly rate for somewhere between 10 to 15 to 20 hours per week, but you can also actually get a great credit for your resume. And that can be, that can range from managing the new play festival to being in charge of operations of our thesis productions in the theater at Lenfest, to serving as a TA and faculty assistant, to being our ticket fellow, the person who gets a lot of the free tickets, handles the logistics, and is in touch with almost every company manager and general manager and producing office in the city, which is another great way to make connections. Another aspect of financial aid is the Schubert internship stipend, which gets paid in the 3rd year. And the Schubert organization has been involved with this program from its founding back in around 1980. And since that time, the Schubert Foundation has been providing support through internship stipends. Theater management and producing students get credit for 2 stipends. And whenever you do your internships, you build up those credits, you bank those credits, and then the money is paid in the 3rd year. As a result, because the 3rd year tuition is significantly reduced from years 1 and 2, because essentially you're not in class, all you're doing is writing your thesis. So because the tuition is reduced, because you're getting your internship stipend, and because for most people, they're working full time, the 3rd year is often either cash neutral or maybe cash positive. So something that the students generally experience.
The bottom line here is that we are extremely mindful of the financial costs, but I would urge anyone who is really interested in the program to apply for the program, because we have resources available to help. And you will know what those resources are. If you're accepted, you will know what those resources are before you're making the commitment to the program. So it can be daunting, but please don't let concerns about the cost be a reason not to apply. We do our damnedest to try and figure out, and I'm using the we globally, I'm not part of it, but the financial aid team does their best to put the resources together. So,
and we're constantly raising more and more money for scholarship funds. And so, although we're not need blind, we can't fill everyone's need each year. We do our very, very best to make the numbers work. In terms of the admissions process and the application materials, anyone who's taken a look at the application or perhaps even started their application probably knows this, but we'll do a little bit of an annotated version of the materials. So transcripts from any other programs you have attended. We do not require the GRE. We do not require any standardized testing for admission to the program. 3 letters of recommendation and 2 essays, which consist of the personal statement, telling us a little bit about yourself and your background, and the statement of objectives. I like to think of the personal statement a little bit as a little bit more of past and present, and a statement of objectives as more of the present and future, as well as the creative materials, which you have a choice. You can submit a portfolio of producing work or work that is marketing related to shows that you've been involved with or management related, or a play analysis. As those of you who've already looked at the application materials may have noticed, this is a very wide open prompt, and intentionally so. Overall, with your in terms of the application that you're putting together, whether it's the essays, the creative materials, who you're asking for letters of recommendation, we're just trying to get to know more about you and the real you. Don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Just show us who you are.
you are. What moves you and drives you as a theater maker?
The one thing that I'll say about the portfolio is that, for obvious reasons, a curated, annotated set of materials is going to be a lot more persuasive and a lot more fun to look at than simply a whole bunch of materials thrown together in a PDF.
Right.
So with the portfolio, we're really looking for something a little more thoughtful, that gives us some insight as far as what we're actually looking at. The application deadline, and Niquette, I hope I have this right, is January 7th, 2025. Once we hit that deadline, after that, the admissions office provides the applications to our admissions committee. So some schools have rolling deadlines and rolling admissions. We do not. It is a January 7th cutoff. Our admissions committee does not see the applications until after that date. At that point, we see all the applications, we narrow them down, and we schedule interviews. Interviews are normally held the very end of February or first week in March. And they can be done either via Zoom or in person. Obviously, we love to meet everyone in person, but we recognize 100% that there may be whether conflicts or financial considerations or long distances that may get in the way of attending in person. And so a Zoom interview is absolutely fine.
Plenty of students come to the program after a Zoom interview.
And as part of the day or two of admissions, we also in that same week or day of 2 of interviews. In that same week, we also have a Q&A session that's available both in person and hybrid. So both in person and Zoom options, that is hosted and run entirely by producing students. Tori and I are not involved in that at all. So we have the website information, though if you're here today, you probably also already found your way to the website. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here. The email address for the admissions office and phone number. And what's next? Oh, what's still to go? Alumni. There is hope once you get through the program. We've kind of given you a selection here of many, many alumni from over the years and where they're working or some of their recent credits. And what I'm going to call your attention to, because it kind of reinforces what we said at the very beginning about how a cohort bonds and relationships last well beyond Columbia. Up in the top right corner is the class of 2015. In 2013, they started gathering together for a Secret Santa holiday party. And that continued while they were students in 2013, 2014, and 2015, and then has continued every single year beyond that on Zoom during COVID. This year, well, I have photos there through 2021, but they did 2022, 2023. This year is 2024, of course. So for next year's deck, I'm going to be able to add another row of photos. Getting close to the end here. 2 pictures here. They each there's a little story behind each of them. So the class of 2015, that's that group that was highlighted in the prior slide, at graduation. So one thing I'm really proud of, and I think speaks to most of our classes that graduate, is that of those 9 students, of those 9 graduates in that photo, 8 of the 9 are all currently active working in the theater. In the photo below, and the disclaimer is that this doesn't happen every year, but just to give you a sense of the kind of magic that can sometimes happen, this particular group, the class of 2018, was in class with Robert Fried and Karen Kuyos. That's them here in the center. They were in accounting class. And you'd think accounting is boring, but not with Robert and Karen. And they were talking about the final exam. And Robert said that they're going to have to try and schedule a makeup session for the final exam because he had to be in Chicago for the opening night of Hamilton. And the class said, well, let's just get us into the opening and we can have class in our final in Chicago. And that's what happened.
They held a bake sale, but not quite, but almost. And they all got themselves to Chicago and went to the opening and had their final.
You just never know what can happen when you're sort of in with working professionals who just care about every single student in the room. Every year is just a little bit different. Oops. So we've come to the end. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope that you've learned a lot about the program. We hope we've answered some of the questions that you have. We hope that you've learned a little bit about us as well. And we're now happy to open it up for questions. We've also put our email addresses down there at the bottom of the screen for anyone who either thinks of a question down the line, is seeing this long after it's been recorded and wants to get in touch with us, or is reluctant to share their question right now here in the Zoom.
Just be in touch with us.
Yeah.
But if you've got questions, we're happy to take them.
Yeah. Oh, I just jumped in. Hi, I just had one question about what sort of qualities or experiences you expect to see in a prospective candidate for the program, if that makes sense.
It does. It's a great question. And actually, now that we've had this slide up for a while, I'm gonna stop the share. So as you can imagine, we get asked that question a lot. What are we looking for? And I think, and Tori and I have slightly different spins on our answers, but what I would say is part of it is that we're looking for the right student at the right time in their career. So someone who is looking to get what we have to offer and is really looking to dig in and explore all different aspects of the industry and question all different aspects of the industry. But also it's about it being the right time in your life where you've had just enough experience working, and that can be different for different people, but enough experience so that you're not really starting from scratch and coming into the program without any real experience to connect to what you're doing in the classroom.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that that doesn't mean we don't take people sometimes straight out of undergraduate, because there can be people who have just graduated from college but have had a variety of experiences that mean they're ready to go. I think the other thing that I always think about when asked this question, there are two things that I would add to the what are we looking for. One is, because the class is always so diverse, we're looking for people who are going to work well with others, who are going to complement different sorts, and who want to learn from people who are different than they are. And we're looking for people who want to, in one way or another, be leaders in the field. It doesn't mean you have to want to be a producer, an executive producer, or managing director, but we want people who want to learn about the industry and who want to live and work in the industry and want to take some sort of leadership position, whether that's an actual job or that's, I want to figure out ways to do things in the future that will strengthen and support the field. I want to think about doing things a little bit differently. This is why I'm interested in doing it. So it's what you bring to it. It's what kind of person you're going to be in the room, which has to do with a kind of generosity of spirit and openness to other people. And it's a desire to make a difference in the field in a variety of ways. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you. Just out of curiosity, has there been like students admitted into the program that have come from like really different industries and they've just like pivoted, but they've wanted to do that program and they have maybe like transferable like skills that they can apply within the theater management and producing field?
Yeah, I mean, there has to be, what I would say is the answer is yes. And there needs to be some, there needs to be, you need to have had some exposure to the theater industry. It can't just be that it sounds cool and I would like to do that, right? So whether that's something that you used to do as an undergraduate, something that you used to do, maybe you were very involved in theater, but then didn't think you could make a living in the theater, went into another field, and now are returning to something that you love. That makes sense. It happens all the time. We've had practicing lawyers come into the program. We've had advertising executives come into the program. We've had finance people come into the program. So it's absolutely possible for someone to essentially come back to the theater. But what we want to make sure, because we admit just a small group every year, we want to make sure that the person knows what they're getting themselves into. And that it isn't just like, oh, that sounds cool, I'd like to try that out. We want someone who, for whatever reason, knows that they're committed, because it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money, we're devoting resources, and we want to make sure that the student is making the right choice. So there are certainly times where somebody might apply and we might say to them, you know what, we don't really think you're quite ready yet for one reason or another, and here's why. and here's what we suggest, and we would love to see you come back and reapply in a year or two. We've had so many applicants do that, come back and reapply a second time, or in some cases, even a third time, and then eventually join the program and be really successful.
Yeah, I mean, when we say that, we mean it. And that's part of, I think it's indicative of the program overall. We spend a lot of, part of why we do that interview is to get a sense of who you are and where you are in your journey. And if we think you're not ready now, and we have every expectation that with a little more experience, you'll be ready in a year, we want to see you in a year. But to Stephen's point, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money, and we can only take a limited number of people, and the seat that someone takes at the table is a seat that somebody else doesn't get, an invitation someone else doesn't get. So it doesn't make sense to have someone come who hasn't yet decided that they want to work in the theater. It doesn't mean you have to come from the theater in that moment.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you both very much.
Yeah, we can also, we will often advise someone also as far as things that they might choose to do to get a little bit more experience, even while they're in another career.
I think Matt was next.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Stephen and Tori. This is actually more of a logistical question on the application. So in terms of written materials, we are submitting a personal statement and a statement of objectives. I think on the application itself, there's also a place to submit a current theatrical resume. And so I wanted to see if that is in fact a requirement, is that optional? And this is coming from someone who has maybe less experience in sort of traditional, work where I would necessarily have sort of a lengthy theatrical resume.
So it is a requirement, and I should add that to my slide. So thank you. And what I would say is that we have had people submit a theater resume alongside a separate professional resume, especially when they're coming from another industry or where they've worked in another area. So that's okay, or to even combine the two.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes
Again,
sense.
we're really looking for, the theatrical resume piece of it is in a way a little more about the other MFA concentrations.
Right.
We really do want to see, we're very interested in everything that you've done. So if you've worked in other areas, don't exclude that from your resume.
It does it all, and do what's easier. If you've got 2 resumes, you can send 2 resumes. You don't have to mesh them. It's not gonna, your chances are not gonna go up and down if you mesh them or not. You can send the 2 resumes, because we're gonna get from your essays, we're gonna understand how those pieces go together or they don't.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks. I think Kathy was next, Stephen, after that?
Yeah.
If I saw the
Yes.
Zoom right?
Yes, hi professors. Thank you for your sharing. So my question is around the JD MFA program, and I would like to know how would this pathway navigate to you differently in terms of career prospects than the single MFA program?
So we have had, so I was the first graduate from the MFA, from the JD MFA program, and I didn't practice
you
law.
Invented it.
Yeah. So I did not go and practice law, but I would say the majority of the students who have been through the program are practicing entertainment/theater lawyers. And of those, most of them are hybrid. So they might be a theater lawyer and a producer, a theater lawyer and a teacher, whether adjunct faculty or regular faculty member. So kind of depends, or it's a little bit different from person to person. Working in business affairs, working at a law firm, actively producing, teaching, it really does run the gamut in that respect. But what I would say, what we all had in common was that we thought that practicing law would be a possibility or was an option when we went into the program. So we weren't, I don't think there are any of us who went through the JD MFA program who did it certain they would never practice law. There was always thinking about would we practice? How would we use the law that played into it? Does that help?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Evie.
Hi, all. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. I just have a question about the letters of recommendation. I come from a BFA program that was very large. I reached out to many people, and none of my professors, yeah, I think on the website it says specifically they want one from our past school. None of my professors have been able to get back to me, but I do have 3 professional theater industry recommendations. Will you still take my application?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, and actually, if there's no one from your BFA program, right, who you knew well enough, if there was, from my perspective, if you have a high school professor who you had a really strong relationship with, who knows you really well as a student, do that. Possibly as a 4th letter of recommendation even, but I would say submit that. Somebody who knows you really well as a student.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you.
But well, if you can't get it, you still submit that application with the 3 letters, okay? Please.
Awesome. Will do, will do. And one more,
We don't want to penalize you for your program.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they should, by the way, they should write the letters, so this is.
I know, but
this
you
is
know, there are
on
a
them.
lot of students.
This is on them, not on you. What was your other question?
Thank you. It's just going off of the resume question. I know you said that we can mesh them together of like work experience and professional experience. But mostly an actor. That's what I've been doing for the last 4 years. Is that something that y'all are interested in hearing about also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Give us your acting resume.
Okay, great.
I assume that in your essay, you are going to talk about why you've been acting and why you're applying to us.
Of course.
So it'll all make sense to us.
All right, great. Good reasons.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
You're welcome. Christy.
Sorry, I had a problem here with the
That's okay.
internet. My question goes more for the transcripts in applications because I am an international student. I'm from El Salvador. So, the transcripts here obviously are in Spanish, and I studied something that has little to nothing to do with theater production. I studied early childhood education. So my question is, for the deadline in January 7th, should I or can I submit a translation of my transcripts along with the official Spanish transcripts, or do you need to have by January 7th official, like some institutions, official transcript for you guys?
Nicolette, I'm going to defer that one to you.
Yes, I was just about to jump in. So for the application, there's no need for it to be official, but we would need the translation.
And does it have to be like a notarized translation, or can I do the free translation?
Yes, it needs to be an official translation. Yeah,
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
I learn
Shira.
something every day.
Hi, Shira.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us all. My question was about the play analysis. What do you think makes a successful play analysis? And for that second half about the management and production solutions we would find, are you looking for more creative and maybe answers about staging, or more things like budget and accounting and I guess like what makes a successful play analysis, I guess, is my major question.
Well, it's a theater management and producing program overall. Given that, what do you think makes for a successful play analysis?
Right. Okay.
That's what I mean by it being a really very wide open to interpretation prompt, right? Because every person is going to, because you're limited in terms of the number of words, right? It's a significant limitation. So there's no way to write about absolutely everything connected to whatever production you might have chosen, right? So what play or musical or theatrical experience are you going to choose to write about? What level of production, of development or production? Where? What is this, something new, a revival, a different take on something? All of the way you answer all of those questions, that then leads to other potential problems or issues that you have to confront. So the answer is, it depends. It's different for everyone.
Yeah, I mean,
There's no wrong answer.
There's no wrong answer, and you want to pick something that's interesting to you, and think about either sometimes some people will pick a play and they'll write about how they think it cries out for a new interpretation, and this is what the challenges of that would be, and this is what I think it is, and this is what the challenges would be. Other times folks will read a script and say among the challenges that this play presents as written is something. You're teasing out something that you see is clearly going to be a challenge when you produce that play.
It could be one challenge that you really focus in on and how to solve it. It could be multiple challenges. It really is a wide open prompt.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you
We're
so
looking
much.
to see how you think about theater.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Thank you so much. This was really helpful.
You're welcome.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate it. Those are great questions. We appreciate you sticking with us for almost an hour and a half.
Yes.
And we look forward to hopefully getting your applications and to meeting many of you and having a chance for further conversation.
And I would just add, if you have questions, you have our emails on that last slide. And for folks who may be watching this after tonight, if you have questions that weren't covered in the questions that these folks asked, although it was a good wide-ranging group of questions, please feel free to email us as well. That's why we put it there. And that deadline is real, right? But it's a
Very
real
real.
deadline. It's a real deadline.
11:59 p.m. Eastern time.
But Stephen and I will be looking at our emails over the course of the winter break. So if you have questions,
Yes, yes.
please send them to us.
One quick note I wanted to make for everyone. We do have a financial aid info session next week, Wednesday. I believe that's December 18th at 7 p.m. So if you would like to join us to get a little bit more information, I know Stephen went across briefly of the financial aid, but if you want to join us for more detailed information, more than welcome to do that via Zoom as well. And also the financial aid deadline is very real. So that's February 4th, 2025. So please get those applications in on time. Please, please, please.
Terrific. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all, and
Thank you, Tori.
yeah, thank you all.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.